When most people think about me, what tends to come to mind is, MILITZA is a straight-A student. She will graduate top of her class. And as much as I take pride in this, I don't want this to be the only legacy that I leave behind. I want to be remembered for how I treated others and for how my actions impacted them. This might come off as a surprise because most people know me to be incredibly grade-oriented and consistently focusing on my GPA, or graded point average. However, I must admit, I care more about my RPA or relationship point average. Think about it this way. Instead of evaluating people on grades, how about we evaluate them on how they treat others? This could be their RPA or relationship point average. I think years after high school, what we will remember most will not be the GPA we carried, but rather the RPA that we displayed. We might see a shift in who the honor students are. Perhaps some people are both good students and good people, whereas others may not be as good of students, but are great people. Right now, I would like you all to take a minute to close your eyes and think about the person you know that makes the most money or is top of your class. For most of you, this was easy to think about, as you were able to think of someone right away. Now, I would like you all to do the same thing, except this time, think about who has the best relationships in your life. When I got asked this question, I had a harder time coming up with a name. And when I finally determined an answer, I realized that one of the people that has the best relationships in my life didn't even complete high school. This proves that we sometimes can become so consumed on evaluating ourselves and others on their achievements and not their relationships. You don't have to be your class valedictorian or a billionaire to be a good person. However, my relationships in my life were originally not my priority. At a young age, I recall most people describe me as intelligent, which made me think that it must be so important for people to use it as the one way to describe me in one word. This made me think that my academic performance was the #1 priority in my life, and as if my relationships almost didn't matter. But now, looking back, I remember when my geometry teacher, Miss Roberts, told me when I was completely burnt out, she told me something that has stayed with me. She told me, "Don't let the perfect get in the way of the good." Months after realizing what she meant, I began to apply this philosophy into my life. Not only did her advice inspire me to not let grades stop me from being a good person, but she also encouraged me to try things that I was afraid of doing because I wasn't going to be the best at them. For example, just a year ago, I would have never imagined myself speaking at a board meeting. I would have probably felt too intimidated or felt that speaking for the high school highlights and happenings should be left to a senior and not to a freshman. But when I spoke at my district's board meeting, I felt incredibly proud of myself. I cannot exactly pinpoint why, because I've not felt that sense of pride in such a long time. However, when I had a conversation with my chemistry teacher the following day, Ms. Peckins, she told me that our school's principal, Mr. Schrock, had described me in positive adjectives that talked about me as a person and not necessarily as a student. Therefore, I realized that our relationships are more important than my grades. Another instance of this is when my English teacher, Ms. Janiga, sent a letter to my parents. As I began to read this, I observed that she stated that I shine, not just due to my exceptional work, but rather because they're reflective of how I treat others and how I make them feel. Reading this did not only give me reassurance in the actions that I take upon every day, but made me realize that my worth is found in how I treat others and myself, and not just my grades. I have felt more fulfilled now by actually spending time with my friends than getting 100% on an assignment. Bronnie Ware also proves that this fulfillment comes from relationships and not just achievements. When we look at her book, The Top Paragraphs of the Dying, she states that these are: 1, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the one that was expected of me. 2, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. 3, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. 4, I wish I'd let myself be happier. And 5, I wish I had stayed true to myself. When we look upon these statements, we realize that at the end of our lives, we probably will not be regretting that we weren't class valedictorians or billionaires. Rather, if we don't begin to focus on our relationships now, we most likely will experience these sorts of sentiments towards the end of our lives. Therefore, I encourage you to reflect on your relationships. Now is the time to work on relationships with others and yourself. After all, don't wait until tomorrow for what you can do today. Thank you.